Hello, I'm Annette Young, and welcome to the 51%, a show about women reshaping our world. Coming up, how would you define courage? I'll be talking shortly to Chanel Miller, whose sexual assault at Stanford University sparked public outrage after her assailant served just 3 months in jail. She bravely decided to go public with her identity, and her book has just been published in French. Also, our team on the ground meet a Brazilian captain who's received an award for her UN peacekeeping efforts. But first, here's a tale of extraordinary resilience. Before revealing her identity in her best-selling memoir, Know My Name, Chanel Miller was known only as Emily Doe in the Stanford University sexual assault case. In a highly articulate fashion, Miller writes of a tale of survival following the 2015 attack, which made global headlines. Her assailant, Brock Turner, receiving a 6-month jail sentence, yet only serving 3 months. The light sentence creating an uproar. But it led to a change to Californian laws, which expanded its definition of rape while adding new mandatory minimum sentences for sexual assaults. And Chanel's book has just been published in French, and I'm delighted to say she joins me in the studio today. Chanel, thank you so much for your time. First of all, what was the trigger that made you decide to go public about your identity?
I think we worry that these stories are too dark for people to handle, that we have to smooth over the edges in order to make it digestible for other people to consume. And I wanted to say that the story itself is not too heavy or dark. We need to create an environment where they can be told. And when you come forward, there's a huge difference between when you're hiding beneath a tarp and you feel like at any moment that tarp can be ripped off of you and you're exposed, versus when you see that there's a spotlight and when you're ready, you step into it. So if we set it up correctly, we can have more survivors coming forward as long as they know they have agency in the telling of it.
Did you have any doubts along the way?
Oh, yes. When I signed the contract to write the book, I said I am not promising to come forward. When my victim impact statement went viral, media said, come on. And I said, I'm not ready. I'll do it in my own time. And when I felt that it was my time, I came forward.
It takes such amazing strength and courage to confront your attacker. Mm-hmm. And talking about that victim impact statement, which you read out in court, with that incredibly powerful opening line, which I'm going to quote, You don't know me, but you've been inside me, and that's why we are here today. By doing that, you took back control of the situation, I imagine, didn't you?
Yes, because the entire time in court, I was never allowed to speak. I was always being interrupted. I felt like the defense attorney had his palm wrapped around the top of my head and was pushing me underwater. And I had to kick just to be able to breathe, to say a full sentence. And so when I finally had my time, I thought, you will not interrupt me now. I'm in control. And I'm not afraid, because all of that fear, that initial fear and self-doubt had been burned away by all the anger I felt watching my family suffer and me suffer. It was me finally drawing the line.
Now, the book has subsequently been published in many, many languages. Mm-hmm. What have been people's response to it?
People have mailed me photographs of their children, saying, I hope my daughter grows up to be like you, which is a concept I never imagined possible, because I was the worst thing that can happen to your daughter, whereas they saw me as someone who embodied these wonderful qualities and exuded some kind of light. And so people taught me how to see myself in a way I had never seen before. And so I knew that when I came forward, there were people out there who were ready to embrace me.
You became an alchemist in a way, didn't you?
I would hope so.
Because you turned a situation of extraordinary misfortune into something that not only sort of changed and be positive for yourself, but positive for others.
Yeah. And I also realized that we all have trauma in our own lives. We all have something we're afraid to speak about. And it wasn't a singular issue I was facing. I'm just someone who chooses to be open about it. But when someone acts like above the issue or they say that's too dark for me, I just think maybe they're not ready to confront whatever is in their own lives. And hopefully by being so open, they'll reach that point one day too.
And yet the epidemic of violence against women continues. And some might say, is it not time to flip the script? Instead of putting the onus on women to take, to be careful in terms of what they do, to ensure their own safety, should not the onus be on ending male violence? So I'm going to ask you, Chanel, what steps do you think need to be taken in order to end this epidemic?
Well, if you look at the assault itself, I was there as an unconscious body. My assailant saw that same body as an opportunity, whereas the two Swedish graduate students saw that body as a human who needed help. They kneeled down to check that I was breathing. They're the ones who stopped my attacker, who got me help. And they didn't start by saying, well, tell me who you are so we can decide if you deserve care. I didn't have to prove to them that I was a human who needed water, who belonged to a family, who had a life to get back to. All of that was already implied without me having to speak a word. And I think that immediacy of care is something we're still missing because so many women have to prove that they're good, that their records are clean, that they can appear button up in order to have respect.
That they're worthy of such treatment.
That they're worthy, that they're credible. And I just never liked the idea that humanity is something that has to be earned, whereas for my assailant, it was so easily given.
You are also now an established artist. You've got I think it's nearly 23-metre long mural in the Asian Art Museum in San Francisco, which is about your experience. How important is it for you and for the world of art to address such issues?
Well, I love that this museum came to me and gave me this huge blank space and said, what else do you want to say? Because so often we ask survivors what happened and we ask them to rehash the past. But once we do that, we also need to be asking them, what else would you like to be in life? What do you enjoy? What kind of skills do you want to flesh out when you're not busy consuming all of your energy thinking about safety and fighting for yourself? Like, what brings you joy? And that's what happened with the museum. So I filled that wall. I took up space without question, and I will continue to create.
And take up space.
Take up space.
So what next for you, Chanel?
Oh my goodness. Well, I am going to be writing books for children the next time I'm hopefully on this program. That's what we'll be talking about because I realize I don't have to hide certain parts of myself, that we're all very complex beings and openness should be embraced. And so one day I will enter a room that will be full of kids and I'll be able to read to them. But I know that is possible now for me.
Chanel Miller, thank you so much for coming in.
Thank you for having me.
Now, as we have reported on before, the United Nations is redoubling its efforts to increase the number of female military personnel in peacekeeping missions. Brazil having taken this challenge very seriously. Our team on the ground went to meet one of its captains who's received an award for her work as a UN peacekeeper.
A show of force by Brazilian Marines, an elite unit of the country's navy. But this is just a training exercise. For these soldiers, it's the final stretch before United Nations certification, which will allow them to be posted on peacekeeping missions. Of the 220 soldiers in this rapid reaction corps, 10% are women. Carla is a naval commander. She represents the new generation of women joining peacekeeping missions. Her 16 months of dedicated service in the Central African Republic was rewarded with the UN Gender Advocate Award.
The idea was to make the gender issue relevant to the entire military. At the beginning of our mission in the Central African Republic, there were only 50 or 100 people committed to the course, but we've managed to integrate it into activities involving more than 11,000 military personnel on the ground.
Joining the Blue Helmets has its constraints for female soldiers, with many struggling to reconcile their family life with their job. Carla was fortunate to have the encouragement of her children. They were the ones who offered to stay with their grandparents so that their mother could pursue her dream.
They said to me, "Mum, you've always supported us. Now it's our turn to support you." And it was even better than I had imagined.
Carla's work also involves the prevention of sexual violence, a sensitive issue for the UN, which recorded 387 reports of sexual abuse across its services in 2020. It's hoped that the integration of women into their ranks will improve the situation.
No caso de entrega de água, é sempre indicado a gente ter uma pessoa, uma militar do sexo feminino, para que facilite essa integração.
Carla's professionalism has become an example to follow.
We make the link between civilians and the military. We can respond to women's needs, to problems they encounter on a daily basis, help that men cannot provide. To be able to do all that would be very gratifying as a woman.
By 2028, the UN hopes that women will make up 15% of troops deployed in peacekeeping missions. Today, they make up 4.8%, a challenging but attainable target over the next 7 years.
And that's it for now. You can also connect with us via our Facebook page, that of course being France24.51%, or do send us a tweet at _51%. So until our next show, bye for now.